10/14/2012, 7:35 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, Sunday morning. What do people in the world want to know? They want to know what to do before the fact, not after the fact. Now, what we have here is Chipotle Mexican Grill weekly chart. This is an earnings preview for our MMTs and our international traders worldwide. What we want to focus that when we sold short Chipotle Mexican Grill in the last quarterly earnings, that's the last quarter, we have that live trade. We made lots of money on that thing. That thing dropped like a rock. And I can tell you that it's been one of the greater performers. Chipotle Mexican Grill is a leader. And there's lots of people that are short Chipotle Mexican Grill going into this report. And it could turn out to be a fatal mistake for one reason. And I'll share this with you now, MMT. On this weekly chart, we have a weekly sell signal that started over here when that earnings came out in the last quarter. And a weekly sell signal is a weekly sell signal. Chipotle Mexican Grill, on the other hand, does not experience these weekly sell signals. And the percent DS is at 17.79%. I will tell everyone going into the earnings, a lot of that news, there's a big hedge fund that is short Chipotle Mexican Grill, which caused this stock last week to drop. Well, it dropped $29. When we did the earnings short, we bought up and out of the money, $350 calls, and we made a lot of money. We got right up to that resistance of this weekly half bar, and it was time to get off board. And that was the volatility trade from the last quarterly earnings, which was a great trade down here on this weekly where it got straight down here. Now, this weekly sell signal is what it is. Now, let me go over here on the other parts of the chart. To get a weekly sell signal like this, I've got to go back 4 years. And I will zoom this piece of the chart up for my MMT. This is the last time in 2008 in the financial crisis, Chipotle Mexican Grill was still in its early growth cycle. But it had its corrections like always. And it had a weekly sell signal back in the financial crisis. That's the only time. This is the only time that we had the weekly sell signal. You want to go back to 2006, it never even had weekly sell signals over there when it was very young. And we got close, but it never did it. So what I'm trying to tell my MMTs is that looking at and this is a weekly chart. Here's Chipotle Mexican Grill. What we will take a look at, they report earnings on October 18th after the close. It's going to trade a certain way, and I don't believe that Chipotle Mexican Grill has a lot of headways, and it has headways in a few different things. We won't talk about the fundamental part other than in the last quarter they did guide everything down to try to pull these numbers in line. And we're oversold right here on this weekly bar. And you can see right here how we traded that long position up. Then that wall of resistance hit it right here, the tops, half of the weekly bar, and it got slammed right back down here. Now, on Friday, Chipotle Mexican Grill traded from $2.85 up to $2.91. It only had a $6.09 range on the intraday process, up $4.11. One of the things about the earnings season is how we can go over here now and take a look at the $280 put, which at the time, that's $280 put. I will draw the trend line. They were cheap down here. For $1, it was great. And then they went all the way up here. And they got inflated at $13.45. Since then, they've come down almost 100%. And this is the 280 put, which is exactly, let's take a look. That's $10 below the market. So it's out of the money, below the market, 280 put. That's made a fantastic run to the highs when Chipotle Mexican Grill on this daily chart, on this weekly chart, you can see when this thing was selling down here last week that this put option went to the moon, and they pay money when Chipotle Mexican Grill falls. Now, on the flip side, I'm going to go over here and take a look at this $300 call. So let's put the put up in here in the video. Here is the calls on Chipotle Mexican Grill. They were up here at $52 a contract. Now they're down here at all-time lows. They've never been this deflated. And we're going into an earnings. Yes, it's a monthly contract, so they're only going to have one day to trade. So Chipotle Mexican Grill has to make a huge move in the earnings for those calls to pay, because it's a monthly expiration and they're going to expire Friday. Yes, they are deflated in this price range, but if anything happens with it, they can get a lot more deflated. However, what we will do is we'll look at what that $300 call up and out of the money is for the upside of the earnings. And at the same very time, depending on how this thing trades up, you know, Chipotle Mexican Grill is going to have a trading range going into the earnings on the 18th. And we very well could have to purchase tomorrow, because the thing about it is, if they're going to run this name higher into the earnings on the 18th, then most definitely what are we going to want? We're going to want these calls over here. And once again, this is a call chart that people, you know, lots of people trade options. They're not market makers in the option pit. And even the retail public, they all want to trade options. Never seen a call chart or put chart on a percent level of the majority of the people. But then they're always out here trying to make these grandiose decisions on how to trade options without looking at the data and having anything to, you know, work with correctly. So basically, we have up and out of the money volatility. Chipotle Mexican Grill had exactly 927,000 shares. It's a light volume stock. Now, when we look at the weekly chart that I've showed you, is that we're oversold on Chipotle. And this is the put side that's made its move. That's the $280 put. And we're going to watch and see exactly what Chipotle Mexican Grill does between now and the 18th, so that we can take both sides of the trade. And what do I mean by that? If Chipotle Mexican Grill wants to run back toward the $300 level going into the earnings, that means that this short-term $300 call pays. Should the uptrend continue from Friday and run back up into the wall of resistances on this weekly chart, you can see right here that I'm going to draw a trend line on this weekly chart, and that's $300 right here, and that's half of that weekly bar right here. So basically, and it's also where the major pullback was over here in calendar 2011 right there. This trend line is where, bam, all-time highs. Now, is Chipotle Mexican Grill overbought at this level? No. Does it have some of the last quarterly bad earnings that it had to adjust to and get out of the way? That's in the name right now going into the quarter. And we are on a weekly level, in my view, in an oversold territory. So, come Monday morning, which will be on 10/15, the first order of business is to figure out what Chipotle Mexican Grill is going to do in pre-market, because it's not unheard of to run the name higher going into the earnings in anticipation of a good report or a different one, and that they could at least come in line with their numbers. So depending on what happens on Monday morning, we'll take one side trade. Now, if this is going to go higher, of course we're going to want to buy the calls. Do we buy the puts right away? No, because if we're going to run up toward 300, that means that this put option is going to come all the way back down here. And they could take all the premium out and come down to $3 to $4 right in here from this current level. Comes all the way down here. If we run up toward 300, they're going to take all the premium out. That means that the call side right here in this video, this is your call. This is $300 call. Monthly expiration. Yeah, it is. And they report on the 18th. Now, if we run up tomorrow, that means that this goes up in value, and this side over here on the 280 put comes all the way back down in value. So, before they report, we have to get one side of the trade. So if they want to continue to sell down, Well, we would buy some short-term puts, and then these calls would continue to fall in value. If Chipotle Mexican Grill trades down to 280, then these $300 calls are going to come way down. So this is the trade management scenario for Chipotle Mexican Grill. We don't see where the report on the earnings is that they should come in line. They should have worked off the negative levels that were in their distribution channels. And the Taco Bell story about people wanting to eat at Taco Bell over Chipotle Mexican Grill, well, go eat at Taco Bell. Chipotle Mexican Grill is a much finer company and much better food. Yum Brands did okay in the quarterly earnings last week. And there have been people who have been coming out defending Chipotle Mexican Grill. Some of the analysts. A big short seller, hedge fund, is short the name. I think that in the short term, that hedge fund that is short Chipotle going into this quarterly earnings could have what we call the house of pain. Meaning that in these back-to-back quarters, when a stock falls this much in the leadership, as they try to work all those negative earnings down, where they can come in line with them or beat them and guide up and say that the story is better. And we're going to be all over this on Monday morning. And once again, it's about the deflated call where the premium is at its low levels. They can go lower, but they're tradable going into the earnings or the day after the earnings report. And same thing with this 280 put. This 280 put could go right back up in value, and we would have to trade that. It depends on what Chipotle Mexican Grill is going to do starting tomorrow morning. And the old saying is, you can sell it down going into the report, or you can walk those bids a lot higher and walk the stock higher in anticipation of a turnaround. And this is how we treat the earnings season. And we will take one of the sides right away. You can't buy both sides of the market on Chipotle Mexican Grill on the same day. We have to establish Monday's trading, which way the trend goes. But I am telling people right now, on that weekly chart that I show right here, this is going to be the wall of resistance. That's going to be the 10-week moving average, and that's at 306. So any move from here to there is that Chipotle Mexican Grill's trend is in a severe bear trend. Why is that? The 10-week is going down. You had 4 weeks closing below it. That makes it a bear trend. A bull trend is when the 10-week is rising and the 20-week is rising. That's a bull trend. This is a bear trend. And it's in a deep weekly oversold where there has not been very many opportunities to get long in an oversold condition with a major headline event such as the earnings coming out. And when you want to trade up and out of the money and below the market on both sides, this is where we start getting in once again the $300 call up and out of the money. It's not, hey, they walk these things. These were $30 a contract. Look at these are not expensive right here to trade going into the earnings. They're cheap. They're deflated. And you know, the put side here pulled back from $14 a contract. They took 100% out. These can still trade back up here going into the earnings. So it's going to be one of the two sides that we get tomorrow morning. I'm going to conclude earnings preview on Chipotle Mexican Grill. We will go in depth with it after hours. We will go through all of the fundamentals on it and what it looks like for 2013 as well, and the year end.